So welcome to our Mainstreet Masters series presented by Mainstreet SA. I'm David West, your host, and today we're talking about the importance of small businesses as the economic and community drivers in regional main streets and towns with an expert in the field, Shelley Cox from the Regional Collective. She's based in Tanunda in South Australia in a small town in a lovely main street. Welcome to you today, Shelley.
Excellent. Thanks, David, for having me on.
No worries at all. Can you tell us about your background with your own small businesses and why you established the Regional Collective?
For sure. Long story short, I'm a winemaker by trade, so I moved to the Barossa 20 years ago now to work in the wine industry as a winemaker. And as I was getting through that, as I had kids, moved into wanting to sort of step out and do some consulting on my own, but really wanted to use some of the skills that I'd gained over, those 20 years of winemaking in helping small businesses, like that coaching leadership sort of role. So long story short, so the consulting moved into creating a workspace, so a collaborative co-working space called Workspace Barossa. So that was in 2019. So we converted the old music store in Tanunda into a multi-level co-working space, which was the first of its kind in the region. And then as we were working through that, realised that there was a need for some of the smaller artisans and makers to have a space to not only sell their products, but also to be online and to market themselves. So then created another business called Makers and Merchants Barossa. And this was just on the cusp of COVID. So a very challenging time followed. For the 18 months out of the 2 years that we had the store, we had no interstate or international travel, which is crazy considering we're in the Barossa, which is a very well-renowned international region and travel spot. So very difficult. I then also had our third child in 2021, so another challenge came on board there. So trying to manage a smaller small growing family with those two businesses was quite challenging. So leading out of that was quite a journey. But I always knew that that coaching and that mentoring and helping other small businesses was, that was key to what was driving me in my sort of next career stage. So the Regional Collective has always been there. I think, this is just sort of the culmination of all of those lessons that, as hard as they were to learn, are now here to share. And certainly a lot of the small and medium-sized businesses and freelancers and artisans that I've met and dealt with over the last few years have helped guide me, in that journey as well. So it's really nice to start to, come full circle and work with them to build their businesses and give them the knowledge and the tools that they want or that they need to build their businesses. So that's really what my vision for the Regional Collective will be, is to be a hub for people to come to when they need, some guidance or some tools or resources. That was my long story short. Sorry.
No. Great background. And I was going to say, small and independent family businesses really are what makes a main street and sets it apart from shopping centres. So what can help make them more sustainable in the long run?
Yeah, I think, it is quite unique, and we want those main streets to have their own unique offering and to feel, reflective of the place that they're from. A little bit like winemaking, you want the wine to taste indicative of where it's from. The French call it the terroir. So, it's to do with the soil, the aspect, the local microclimate. So we want those main streets to be as unique as possible and be authentic. So the way that we can do that is by really making sure that we've got small businesses that are really working as well as they can on their own, because then together the overall main street will be humming. So I think, it is difficult because the people that usually are running the small businesses on a main street, they're doers, they're people that do lots in their community. So they're probably volunteering at the school, or they're in the canteen at the local football match, and doing those sorts of things around the regional community. So if then the businesses aren't thriving, those business owners, I can guarantee, are probably burning out. So we want to make sure that we've got, tools in place and support in place to help those small businesses thrive. So then our communities don't suffer with that sort of flow-on effect, with small business and family, businesses, because it is a full-time job, but we also want to make it sustainable so that they can, continue to do those good things in our communities.
Yep. You also in your notes you talk about empowerment and about and how businesses can guide their own destiny. Can you just expand on that a bit, please?
Yeah, I think it's part of, the way that I would approach, the coaching and mentoring side of things has always been, I don't want to be the go-to all the time for the answers. I actually want to help people understand how I got to, to guiding them in a certain way. So giving them the tools and the knowledge to actually troubleshoot, or to, build up resilience when, through COVID, that taught us a lot about, needing to pivot. I used to love that word a lot, but it got used quite overused. But that really is, it's a tool that's really helpful as a small business owner, because nothing's ever the same for very long. You're always having to troubleshoot and think of, new ways to bring in revenue, or, the streets might be closed for roadwork. So, okay, what else can we do? So those sorts of things are, they're empowering for people to actually make those decisions themselves, rather than going, well, I'll wait for someone else to tell me what to do. It's that teacher person to fish, and they'll be fed for life. So really wanting to make sure that they've got those tools, but also that they know where to go for help. So we've got, local councils, we've got maybe local business associations, we've got regional development associations. So making sure that there's a really good community there that's supporting, but you also, as a business owner, that's where you can go to for support, and not just waiting and resting on your laurels for the ideas to come. I think overall, we want to make sure that there's proactiveness, because we sort of, if we don't, well, what will happen? So I think, empowering, and I'm looking at making sure that at the really base level, so that sort of micro and small business level, there's some really clear ways forward with the foundations of business. Because if we can get them strong and them working, then they can grow into, maybe having higher achieving goals, which maybe to scale and to grow as well. And then they'll have a really good foundation, to base themselves off of.
Yeah, I think during COVID, like a lot of businesses had to learn how to survive, and that was like a really big test. And what
Yeah.
you talk about is how can you go above that and actually start to talk about how can we make the business grow and thrive. Can you just
Yeah.
talk about how that might happen? What sort of things should the business do?
Certainly, key for me is, why are you doing it? Why do you want to, why do you want to run this business? What does your business, provide, do? What solution does it provide? What, pain point does it answer? And that's also important for us as business owners as well. Why are we in it? And why are we doing this? Does it serve us? Because especially when it's a solopreneur, you're one or maybe two people, you're the heart and the soul of that business. And if you don't know why you're doing it, then that's a big red flag. So then exit straight away. But then certainly, like, the three key areas. So I've got sort of 6 core topics, I guess, that we've sort of come up with to just make sure that's a really even, base. So that brand identity. So again, why you exist, what is your brand about? And it may just be, look, I love doing this. I just want it to cover costs, and I want to be able to, have lots of free time, but, do this on the weekends. That's a great excuse. That's a great reason, as long as you know what you want to get out of that business. And then secondly is financial. So making sure that you actually have a really good strategy and a plan, a budget, and making sure that you've got, attainable goals that you want to set. And then having some strategy, so a marketing strategy around that is sort of probably those three key, you know, um, things to look at. So marketing strategy. I mean, is it something that people are going to want to buy or use or service? Like so, those three key things is making sure that you set up enough to then get to the next level and dive deeper into it. But yeah, they're probably the three key areas that I would be looking at from the first sort of time that we would speak to somebody about either starting a business or wanting to take it to the next step. If you're not clear in those areas, you need to deep dive a bit further into that.
And I was going to say that there's so many training options available, sort of accountancy, marketing, all sorts of different angles. So where should a business sort of start as far as working out which direction to go as far as training goes?
Yeah, and that was one of the other things that the reason that I've sort of gone through. I've had probably about 12 months of reflection on the last 5 years, because I'm a get in there and do it and learn it as you go kind of person. But what is really tricky is that there isn't one path, there isn't one right way, there isn't a training
Mhm.
manual. There's a lot of people that, if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, you've taken a huge risk. You've got a lot of, courage to actually say, yeah, I'm going to work this out. So it is, I thought it was quite, there's a gap there for not having actually a bit of a roadmap. So I want to sort of lay that out as easily as I can to sort of go, make sure you catch, do these three, these six core topics that we cover. And you may be strong in two of them, but there are other ones, they may be, it may be that you're a numbers person. So your budget, yep, you're all over that. It may be that, I mean, you may not be able to collaborate well or work well with others as a leader or within teams. So that might be an area where you may need to just, be conscious of improving in to make you a well-rounded business owner. So getting those foundations right, but getting kind of a bit of a roadmap of almost a self-assessment of yourself as a business owner and
Mhm.
then your business, is what I'm putting together, because my organisational brain wants a bit of a plan. So yeah, I'm just trying to put things together so that there's at least a checkpoint. You go, look, okay, I know what my brand is about. I communicate that in my in my branding. I've got a budget. We've planned. I've got our pricing strategies. Is right. There's a healthy profit margin there. I know where my customers are at, so I'm just going to be concentrating on these platforms or ways of marketing. That's then that kind of can give some confidence to say, well, I'm doing okay, because as a small business owner, we never know, are we doing okay. So I think remembering that there's lots of resources out there within there's Adelaide Business Hub, there's the Office of Family and Small Business, there's the RDAs, they have a B2B program. There's lots of things that are out there that are low cost as well and low investment to start off with. And then also know that it's one step at a time. Like you never actually, this is a journey that's going to be going on forever. Like we never actually finish learning. Sometimes I would like to be just done learning and have a bit of quiet time. But as a business owner, you've just got to have that learning, open to learning mentality, because you're always going to be learning something new. And one of the core topics that we have is kind of like being able to reflect and review and use, data, or have some time to reflect within our business. Because if we're doing the same thing over again and getting the same result, that's insanity. So we want to make sure that there's built into our way of working is this idea of being able to reflect, review, and then we can scale and evolve. But again, it's getting those foundations right. And it's just, you do one step at a time, one thing at a time, because nobody's perfect. And it can be overwhelming. So I want to just try and break down that overwhelm for small and micro business owners.
And I was going to say, sometimes businesses work really well when they work with somebody else, like there's a partner, maybe a partner business.
Yeah.
How should businesses consider that option, and how do they make sure that they've got a fair arrangement?
Yeah, and that's the thing, like being really clear about, what the goals are of the business and also the personalities, like what do they want to get out of the business? Talk about the hours that are going to be involved, what are, the contributions going to be. And, as much as that can be a bit stressful and a bit daunting to start off with, so important. And that also goes together with if you're going to collaborate with, some of the other business owners around you, or it might be a town event or a Christmas shopping night, for example. Be really clear, like as much as you can, be really clear about what the expectations are, who's going to do what by what timeline, and have that agreed to. Because as we find on, if we've been on lots of committees, somebody always does more than the rest of other people, than the rest of the group. So as much as you can put out in front beforehand, and keep that communication going, then you can get much better results. So we work with the regional collective. It's not just me. I've asked other experts in their field as regional guides. They understand what small and micro businesses are about, to help me, bring. We've got a workshop next week, but bring that to the wider community, because I can't do it alone and they can't do it alone, but they have similar values. So again, that's sort of starting to collaborate. I've said, well, here's what I'm asking of you. Here's what I'll do for, to promote your business as well. And so we put that out ahead of time. So I think with anything, what's each party going to do? Keep those clear, try not to muddy the waters too much, and keep that communication open, is as best you can, and keeping those partnerships, working strong.
Yeah. I was going to ask about that with partnering with like councils and regional development authorities. Of course, councils can add so much to a main street, particularly in the regional areas. Can you sort of just tell us a couple of the things that they could do to actually help the businesses to work together?
Yeah, and I think as we'd sort of shared at the Mainstreet SA conference, was there's a lot that small businesses can do, but they're one or two people, they're small and they're turning like a hamster on a wheel, like they're working really hard. So I think the opportunity is there for councils and, the RDA, to really help be leaders in that area, especially on the main street, and have a vision and help, bring the business owners along to share in that vision and see how they can actually improve, or contribute to it. But they can't be the ones leading it. Like business owners can't be the ones leading it. They're sort of at their limit. But I think if there's a clear way forward and a clear vision, things like opportunities for grants, and funding opportunities, incentives for landlords, because a lot of the time the landlords aren't the business owners on the shop fronts. So making sure that there's some, working in partnership as a bigger sort of group, and making sure that there's, that mentoring capacity shown, mentoring opportunities shown to small business owners. So maybe partnering them with someone else who's, a bit bigger in the main street, and trying to find ways to work together. But I think councils can certainly help lead, but they also need to not relinquish control. That's not sort of what I'm thinking, but there's so much better benefits will come from collaborating with those small and micro business owners, because they're really creative, they're really courageous, they're hardworking. So why wouldn't we want to use that resource, to build a great main street? So that's probably all I can think of now.
Yeah. No. You mentioned earlier too about brand identity, and sometimes people might hear it and go, "That's a bit of jargon, marketing jargon." But where should a small business start to sort of find their brand?
Yeah, I think, and it is tricky in today's age where there's a lot of influencers and micro influencers, and we can be inspired by other brands and what they're doing. But also remember that, when we go down a main street particularly, or if we're buying from a regional, small business, we don't want it to feel like everybody else. We don't want it to feel like it's, that mainstream product or offering. So brand identity really comes down to, having some really core values that you believe in. And if you're a small business, then your brand will probably believe in the same things, because you are, it can be quite interchangeable. Being consistent in that messaging of what you're about, what your purpose is, what your mission, or your vision is for that brand. And then that can kind of flow on through into how you tell your story and how you, interact with your customers as well. So if if you've gone through all of those steps, then it'll feel like its own, person or identity, and not that cookie cutter, because people don't want same old, same old. They'll be like, have you been to that quirky little place down there? They have all these, or where did we have coffee? They've got all these like teacups and things on the walls. They're quite, it's a bit quirky like that. So people will remember those things and that feeling, as opposed to something that might be, Instagram worthy and look great somewhere, but not feel like authentic in its offering. Like it might just feel fake. Yeah. So I think, and it does come down to, if you're a small business owner, then likely your brand values will be very similar to your personal values, because it's you driving most of it. So just sort of taking it back to, why are we doing it? What do we want to do? And use that as a starting point to help be consistent in that messaging to customers as well. Perhaps if you're influenced by what other brands are doing, can seem really inconsistent, and you'll lose trust in what the actual offering is. So it's, better to be you, because nobody else can be you.
Yep, that's great advice. I was going to say the other one is just focusing on social media. I mean, social media can be quite daunting to a small business owner, and trying to build up the customer base. So, are there some things you'd suggest there, and can you help small businesses with this?
Yeah, and certainly knowing that it's a learned skill. Like I'm a winemaker by trade. I'd only ever posted some photos of my kids on Facebook before I started my businesses. So it was quite a scary process to kind of think, oh my God, what am I going to put on there today, and what do I need to do? Now I don't think about it, and I plan ahead, and I just let it be. But first of all, I mean, you're not going to be everything to everyone, and again, you're only going to be you. So being clear about what your story is and what you want, to tell, what message you're telling, how you want to share that, comes through in that marketing strategy. But also knowing where your customers are. So if you're an accountant, for example, LinkedIn's probably where they're at, and maybe Facebook. So then you just focus on those two platforms. So you don't have to be on TikTok doing dances or Pinterest doing mood boards, because that's not where your customer base is. So again, knowing more about yourself, your offering, and then your customers means that you can kind of focus, and you may expand out, but certainly just starting with, with one or two platforms to start off with. And then also, coming up with a list of either your services or things that you believe in, some of your values, behind the scenes, kind of a day in your life. There's a list of things, and you just start doing that, and maybe once a week. But as long as you're consistently doing once a week, then you might move on to twice a week. So you don't have to go all in, all at the start. And, because, and what I've learned is that while that is part of the strategy, it's not the whole strategy. So you want to be making sure that you're building up an email list as well. So you're connecting with your customers who are actually wanting to hear from you. You might be, again, if you're an accountant, you may be doing newsletters on LinkedIn, so doing articles on LinkedIn. So there's sort of things like, you don't want to, very much a believer in asking the question of why you're doing it before you start it, because if you don't know why you're going to do it, then don't do it, because there's so many things that you could be doing that our time is very precious, so we don't want to be wasting time doing something that's not going to get a result for us or, our business. So.
Yep, and I think the word from today, from talking to you, is sustainability. About how in the long term is a business going to grow and actually thrive, so that we're not sort of just going from 1 year to the next year. How are we
Yeah.
going to grow? I think is a great message from you.
Yeah. And it's about finding out what the core things that are really valuable to your business to be doing. So we've always got that setup time. So it might be a year or two where you go, right, we're just going to set it up. I always talk about almost casting a net out and seeing what comes back in, because usually what results we think we're going to get, or the customers that we're going to attract, or the products that we're going to offer at the start are actually quite different to what the customers are wanting, needing. So you've got to really have that, throw it out there, see what comes back in, and that reflect, review, then evolve. Then you can actually move forward. And the things that I thought I would be doing and offering have changed, but that's because I've listened and I've adapted and I've evolved, to also know what the things that I love to do. So there's some services that we offer to businesses, but they're the things that I really love doing. So things like social media templates, EDMs, being able to help people with a bit of that quick win kind of work, I love doing. So that's why I've put them as services available, because there's some things that I've done in the last 5 years that actually not my jam. So I'm not offering them. But that means that, if I'm sustained by doing things that I love, then I'm going to keep, creating, keep providing content, keep helping other people to find, better ways to work in their business. So that's, I think key learning is to find the things that you love to do and are good at. And then the other bits is either do less of or outsource or delegate when you can. As we grow from a smaller business, sometimes we have to wait until we're a certain size to delegate. But again, knowing that if you say, okay, for the next 6 months, right, I'm doing all of my finances, for example, I'm going to do all my bookkeeping while it's small. But once I get to a certain point, I'm going to look for somebody who can do these tasks that I understand what's about. I value their time to do it because it frees me up for doing other things. So there'll always, be things that we just have to do for a certain period of time. But to continue to do those, if we're not seeing results and if we don't have a plan, then that's where that burnout can come to. We get overworked, we've got no direction, we don't have a plan, and we don't have support. And that's not a great space to be in.
Yep. No, well, thank you so much for sharing your information with our Mainstreet SA members and Mainstreets all over the state. It's so valuable having our small and family businesses and independents working well in our main streets in our regional towns. So make sure you look up Shelley. She's on the regionalcollective.com.au. Look her up and to see what events are coming up soon. And thank you again, Shelley, for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks so much, David. And we're keen to go to other regions to help, empower those smaller businesses as well. So keep an eye out for more resources and ideas for small and micro business.
Well done. Thank you.